Hello, all, and welcome to the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Fanatics podcast. I am your host, Daniel Coolbaugh. Today, I have me a very special guest, Andre Jones. Andre, how are you doing today?
I'm well, thanks, Daniel. Yourself?
Oh, I'm perfect. I felt good that, we could get in today, and I really appreciate anytime I can talk to somebody about books. I had a gap. I was like, oh, this worked perfectly. So I love any time where I have that in my schedule. My student tried to remind me, and I totally forgot because I was sick last week. So he said to me today, he's like, oh, hey. I was like, oh, yeah, that's totally right. Today's the 19th. So it feels good to get to talk to you, about, you and your books and your writing experience today. And
Yeah, like
before I do my writing session. So I really appreciate you coming on and chatting with us today. So thank you so much. I love that
good.
shirt, by the way, too. That's an awesome shirt.
Yeah,
All right.
it's me.
It's super cool. Just had to point out for the audience, too. So, what has your writing journey been like up until this point?
Well, I've only been writing seriously for 6 years. I probably like any first time author. I had no confidence, and I just kept on. I had an idea in my head for 20 odd years. I actually created the role playing game,
Oh,
and
cool.
then I got it to the playtesting stage, and for various reasons, not because of that, I joined the Navy, and I couldn't play it, so I thought I'd write it. But yeah, like I said, on and off for 20 odd years with no confidence or writing experience, I actually seriously put pen to paper during COVID. We had from Melbourne, roughly on and off 2 years lockdown.
Yeah.
I had retired from the Navy by that point, and my very supportive wife said, "Let's get this out of your head." So I started writing. That was City of Bridges, which is book one of the Seven Portal series. And in the one and only book I was ever going to write, because I didn't like English at school, I thought it had to have everything that I liked to read about. I liked, obviously, my fantasy world that I created. I liked the concept of apocalyptic future Earth. I liked time travel, and obviously it became bigger than one book. So it's now, I won't say it's a trilogy. It is three books, but I always think there's offshoots.
Mm,
So it would just be a continuation of the series.
yeah.
So my writing journey has been rather haphazard for the last 6 years.
Mm. I like how you identified that because I always think of like I was working at the middle school across from the school I work at now, and I went to the library with some kids and I needed a book. It was like state testing or something. You couldn't have your phone as a staff member or
Mhm.
anything like digital, just in case you're looking up answers for kids. So I looked over and I was like, I'll just find a book here, like whatever. And I found David Eddings. And I found the second quartet, and I went through all of them within probably like maybe like a week or two. And then I discovered that I hadn't actually read the original ones. So then I went and read those. So I'm sure people appreciate that you made an addendum there and said that there were going to be other books because I didn't think, I didn't know there were things before. My friend actually, we talked about at the same time and realized that he hadn't read the second quartet, so it was really cool. So I'm sure a lot of people, who will find your writing will feel that way too, right? Like, oh, I wish there were more. So I know I've
I
done that when someone does a trilogy sometimes and then doesn't do anything else with this amazing world. So
Mind you, having said I've got other stories in my mind for this series,
mm,
um, I have written nine other books since that series. So it's on the back burner.
yeah, yeah. Well, I had
As
a one thing that made me write is like go back to writing again was like you said, the pandemic, and it was right before, and I had read an author, and then the rights got changed, so they wrote the trilogy, and then they added a epilogue that was horrible, changed the entire thing, and I hated it. So if you look at just the trilogy without that, last little chapter, it was one of the best written trilogies of fantasy I've ever read. And then I found out later on that that author thought that with the rights with the gaming world, thought that they were going to continue to write in their own world, and then the rights switched to another company. So for me, I was like, oh, three amazing books of this, and then there's nothing else. So it always kind of left me kind of wondering. So I definitely
Well, one of the
understand.
benefits of being an independent author, I suppose, is you can write what you want when you want,
True
and
that. Sometimes it bogs you down too, right?
you just pay the bills. That's it.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, we talked about fantasy a little bit, but what genres do you currently write in and why?
Okay. Well, fantasy, science fiction. I have dabbled in children's books or a children's book. Again,
Still counts.
most of this came from during COVID. The children's book idea came from COVID. We're walking the few kilometres that we could around our where we lived, and just ideas came to my head, and my wife was very agreeable of it. But it was on the back burner again because I had other ideas. So,
Yeah.
but I write science fiction as well, mostly because that's all I read when I was a kid. I
Mhm.
mean, obviously, we're talking about growing up in the 60s and 70s. So, well, I'm still growing up now, I suppose. But comics at first, and then I don't know the age group you've got there, but Enid Blyton was one of them, and the older
Mhm.
Alfred Hitchcock, um,
Oh yeah.
the three investigators, but which isn't science fiction, but or fantasy, but they're the sort of books I grew up with. And then um, I couldn't honestly give you Robert Heinlein, Asimov, or Brian Aldiss, but I just liked it. And so, of course, when I was writing, it was obviously going to be those things that I liked to read, and yeah, basically that's why. And um, when I was writing the Seven Portal series, because it was based on a role playing game I designed, and I didn't know anything about writing at the time. Someone points out to me now, oh, it's LitRPG, and
Oh yeah.
and I thought, okay, yep, I'll put that in there as well. Yeah, it's epic RPG Portal Grimdark.
That's awesome. Oh, that's super cool. I did not know that, so that's actually really good to know. That's super cool. It is interesting. I think back to a couple of things I read or, movies I watched as a kid. And they were probably just doing stuff. There was one movie where like these kids, it's like a brother, a sister, or a brother, a sister. One of them's like female friend, and then like another. Yeah, it was like three boys, a girl, and then their friend, and one of them like gets caught in like this dinosaur world, and then all of a sudden they all do, and it was like the coolest thing as a kid. And it's a, like live action too. So since then, recently I was talking about like Portal Fantasy with somebody. I started thinking about that, and I asked my brother, I was like, "Did I make this movie up?" He's like, "No, you watched it all the time. Like went to the movie store, got the VHS, watched it." So I'm still trying to find what it is, but it's funny where I'm like thinking of things like that, right? Where I'm like, oh, that was Portal Fantasy, right? Or like A Kid in King Arthur's Court was a great one too back in the day. So I'm like, now making these connections with Lit RPG too. There was some Lit RPG ones too that I thought were really cool. But it's weird to me that now with TikTok and all these things, I see people bringing up all these old genres and movies and things, but people haven't brought up some of the ones I watched as a kid. So it's kind of interesting to
That's
see. But yeah, it's interesting that you kind of had that same thing with your writing. So I find that really, really cool.
It's worked out. It worked for me so
Yeah.
far.
Yeah. Well, I hope it continues to work for you, Andre. Now, in terms of your dark fantasy book, Red says, what is it about and what type of world building did you focus on for the first book in the series?
Um, well, so we mentioned City of Bridges. That was my first book. Red Sails or Secrets of the Deep, which is a Red Sails series. That's my latest book, published in January. What can I say? I was watching a TV series called Black Sails
It's
on
such a good
Netflix,
show.
which was people say they haven't seen it, and let's face it, not everyone watches Netflix or um, those sort of subscriber TV. So I I could be wrong, but no, I'm a Leo. I can't be wrong. I described it as a very dark, bloody, gritty Pirates of the Caribbean without Johnny Depp, and
Mhm.
some people would nod and agree because some have seen it.
Yeah.
So it inspired me to think of, are there women pirates, which there were in the TV series, and
Yeah.
I did a bit of a web search and I found those women were mentioned. But when I looked deeper, there were some very big, well, there was a French woman currently living in France at the moment. So that was quite cool. Her husband was betrayed and hung, and she basically went to piracy and started attacking the French merchant ships, and had a few British ships within her sights as well. But she had, and I didn't know, I swear I did not know this at the time, but she had 3 ships. They were painted black and they had red sails.
Oh, that's cool.
And I have put a forward in my Secrets of the Deep, saying that when I did a web search after I'd written it, it was basically labelled "Reality is stranger than fiction," because it was apart from the ships being black, mine aren't black. Well, I haven't really specified what colour they are actually, but the fact that there was 3 ships and they had red sails, and she didn't have a women crew as such, but she was a woman, female pirate.
Yeah.
Now, I should stress that my ladies aren't pirates; they're privateers. So they, for various reasons to the plot, they have access to 3 ships. There's elemental magic. There's a lot of political intrigue as well. So it's not just women on ships, but they were survivors of abusive relationships, and so given the magic, and they do air and water, and they're on the seas, they were given a commission by the government to keep the waterway safe. That meant chasing pirates, and so that's what they do. So the world building part was, well, if there's lots of sailing, I suppose I'd have lots of water, and obviously the Earth is about 75% water. I won't go as far as Waterworld, where land was almost unseen, which I thought was very silly. But anyway, we have got about 85% water. So, and there's a lot of island nations. Nothing as big as continents like Australia or North or South America, anything like that. And so we haven't really explored the whole spectrum of islands, nations. It's really currently just focused around one small section, shall we say. And so the world building was just based on creating a very much maritime environment.
It's super cool. My history brain's thinking, and as you're saying that, I'm like, oh, it mixes with my writer brain, and I'm thinking like, man, like I don't think it's spoilers because Wheel of Time's been out for a really long time. So, and it's pretty basic, I think, where again, one of the books, it's like you get to like book 3, right? Or book 4, and they start to have these legends about people across the sea, right? And to me, that was always really cool. And then Terry Goodkind did the same thing with the Sword of Truth series as well. And I think did it really well. So I think it's just like cool because if you are in a particular section, right? It really allows you to do really whatever you want with other books and series, right? Within the same world that connects. So I think that's just like a super smart because it allows you a really big tapestry, right?
And if you want to introduce something else that you probably wish you introduced earlier, then it's an excuse to bring it in from imported from another point.
Oh, that's super cool. That's awesome. Oh, Waterworld.
Yeah, that's not good.
I was like, eventually they're going to run out of stuff. That's how I felt. Eventually they're going to run out of agriculture or something. Yeah, it's really funny.
Well, the one thing that really threw me was, okay, so I can understand the premise that there's so much water and that it's very, very rare to find land. But when he took the girl in that glass bubble and sort of towed her, and she was going through New York, I thought, if land is that scarce, we're talking about thousands of meters, and the water pressure alone would crush anyway. So we just leave your brain at the door.
Yep. That's very fair. Well, but my friend, it's funny that you mentioned that because my friend was talking about like he can't ever get over that movie, and like because he had so many questions, right? Especially at the end. He had like world building questions, whatever. So that was like one of the things that he was like, I don't know, I got to check that game with him, but he was like writing his own. So it's interesting where the way you described it was very similar to how him and my conversations have went. But yeah, it is interesting, right? Because I think the water itself, right, and having so much just already adds an air of mystery, right? And then,
Yep.
there's just so many things you can do if you are doing a fantasy world for it. So, yeah, I think it's cool. Like H.M. Long, right? She's got her Pirates of like Dark Water and kind of type series. Love that cartoon, by the way. Yeah, so yeah, I think it's really cool anytime someone does anything with pirates and fantasy, to be quite honest. One of my favorite characters was Captain Dermot from R.A. Salvatore. He did a really good job with just like
Yeah.
naval stuff in general. So yeah, that's super
Well,
cool.
coming from the Navy, I use a lot of terminology.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, I've got to search some of it because obviously the ships I sailed on were steel and they didn't have sails, so
yeah,
the terminology I still need to look at. But um, yeah, look, it was good fun. Still is.
that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. So I was just curious, like, so like so in terms, I write a lot of history stuff into mine because that's just what I find interesting. Historical mysteries are particularly what I find interesting. So I do a lot of that. And I think it's just fun in a fantasy or sci-fi setting. So would you say that, like maybe you missed the water a little bit? So maybe that's why you kind of went that route and then decided to use what you knew, or you just wanted to just, you didn't want to like look a
No,
bunch of stuff up. You want to just kind
not,
of go with that forward knowledge or
not particularly. I mean, there's, I suppose, like any, when you do a career change, there's some parts of it that you loved and you reminisce on, and then some parts you really hated. And yeah, and I suppose the human brain tends to gloss over the stuff that they hate. And so I've only got really, well, I won't say I've got only good memories. I've got some bad memories too. But yeah, I try to just ignore the downside of it. I miss some aspects of the Navy, but there's some things that I just don't miss at all. And I'm happy now, retired. Thank you. Don't want to go back.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because my friend, we were discussing that, in terms of like the Navy and stuff. He's like, the only thing I miss is like being on the water and like, like looking out at the horizon and kind of getting to the next place. So that he like has his own boat now. That's like what he does.
Right.
So but it was interesting. Yeah, we were discussing that a lot with he put a lot of that into the characterization of his Firefly like or Mal like Nathan Fillion character. So I always find that interesting when people are able to take those experiences and just make them cool. Like Patricia Briggs took her knowledge in Alpha and Omega series of horses and put it into one of the latest books that she did for the series. And I mean, I love horses, but like not horse breeding. She made it so freaking interesting. So I think it's always interesting to see where, people's backgrounds really come in, to their writing style or their ability to make something really unique.
And it's great that whatever the aspect is that they can bring it in to gives them that little bit more of realism. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
it's fantasy or it is make believe, but it's got to have some sort of plausibility or some sort of connection that we can relate to.
Yeah. I think Brandon Sanderson does that pretty good. He'll bring in different stuff, and yeah, it makes it pretty fun. But he always does it in an interesting perspective for a different reason. Like Kaladin's like a surgeon, right? And I'm like, never would have thought being a surgeon would be this interesting in my entire life. But it's interesting. Like I'm sure people watch The Pit and find it interesting, or ER back in the day. That
Yep.
one was pretty interesting. But yeah, in a fantasy setting or sci-fi setting, to make stuff like that really interesting, I think shows a lot of skill on the author's part. So that's super cool. Now, so we brought up your other books earlier, but what are your books, The Seven Portals, about, and why should fans of Lit RPG pick them up today?
Okay, so being based on a role playing game, I have to explain to people at conventions I go to, and as you would have heard along many times, if you're an author of fantasy explaining your book to somebody, if you're a fly on the wall, you are a lunatic. So, so I explain to people that there's 7 races on this planet. and obviously the hint there is the 7 portals. They're not native to the world, and so I say that. So I said, because it is a role playing game, there are not elves, there are not dwarves, there are no hobbits or anything like that. A lot of the races were sort of based loosely on some mythology, but I've got humans, obviously, and then I've got a feline race, a reptilian race, a shape changer, not a shapeshifter. I have he's like Odo, I suppose, and start in one of the Space 90s. He's sort of a grey blob, but there are limitations to what they can change into. So like a percentage of their body mass, larger or smaller. Too small, it's hard, and too big, they're just all flimsy and stuff. Anyway, reptilians, avians, Aquarian race, and then of course there's magic. And so my feline human hybrid or half-caste character gets into some trouble, and she's got a book of prophecy that she has to deliver, and various religious cults are after her. Could obviously having this book of prophecy could give them some power, and so everyone's after it. And of course, there's a cult of necromancers, and she doesn't necessarily have to be alive to get the information from her. So they send out an assassin, and the idea is that they would then pick her up in purgatory or in the death plane and have a chat to her. But well, the assassin doesn't always work that well. So, and she's Leonie, my main character, is learning new skills, not going up levels as you would expect in LP role-playing game. But anyway, so she goes on. She's taken her sidekick, Fearon, who's the shapeshifter, shape changer, and they meet up with various people, assassins, wyverns, telepathic wyverns, and it's obviously exploring the world through their travels, and obviously she's learning things. We're getting involved with more cults get on the trail with her. We explore some of the boundaries of some of the other races when she meets them, and hopefully it's a nice, I won't say gentle, but an easing into world building as opposed to data dumping.
So you're not going to be like Steven Erikson in Gardens of the Moon and be like, push you off the boat in the middle of the ocean. Speaking of boats, I talked to my best friend, we were reading that, and we finished the entire like main series, but I was like, after the first chapter of book 1, I was like, I need a life vest. I was like, I have no idea what's going on right now. I felt like that way for like 3 books, but I still enjoyed them. That's really interesting. You had me at cat folk, to be quite honest. Anytime someone has a cat like person or race or species, I don't know. Panther's my spirit animal, so anytime someone says that, I picked up a book a while back, and I don't remember if it was like Zelazny or who it was, but it was like one I had never seen before, and it was like a little bit older one, so maybe it was like before I got into paperbacks or whatever. But like yeah, I had a cat folk on the front, and I was like, yep, and like this cool star helmet. I was like, yeah, I pulled that one out right away. Well, that sounds really awesome.
And she
And yeah,
is
go ahead.
furries. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. So I'm curious. It was so funny because one of my students was like trying to figure out what a cat folk was. I was like, yeah, like a cat person. It
Yeah.
was really funny. Now I'm just curious because you did mention, like, this gaming experience that led to this world. I'm curious, like, what was like kind of one of like the hardest things about taking that previous knowledge and then creating this world in these books, from that past knowledge?
Into the 7 portals, or just in books in general?
Well, I mean, these books in general, but that was the one, right? You said where you had like the gaming aspects, right?
So I had no idea of LitRPG at the time. I mean,
Yeah.
it was later on that, I mean, obviously I've read the Forgotten Realms, the Gary Gygax movies and books. And again, maybe my naivety, I did not realize that was LitRPG. I don't. Maybe you could tell me when LitRPG was, when it was called LitRPG, but anyway.
Probably, honestly, about 8 years ago is my opinion, because I started this podcast almost 6 years ago, and literally like 2 years before that was when I started hearing people use that term more and more, and that's when I started to see it as like the moniker. So it's kind of interesting.
I don't feel so bad about it then.
Yeah.
But it never really occurred to me that the book would be based on a role-playing game. It was based on the world that I created for the role-playing game. Yep, I just expanded on that. But I know I say it's fantasy, it's all make-believe, but for me, it has to have some form of plausibility. There are rules. You can't just do a fireball and it takes its toll. And it's like when my women in the Red Sails, why are they doing what they do? They're not just, hey, let's just create a community and chase pirates and castrate pirates. There's a reason why the women are together. There's a reason why they have these access to these ships. There's a reason why men are more violent in the world. Well, men do earth and fire, which is very powerful, very volatile, elemental magic. This is where the Wheel of Time sort of reference comes in, and then women can do air and water. Now, air and water can be very violent too, but it can also be very subtle. And obviously, when they're in their ships, they're surrounded by their elements, which is why they can chase pirates. When I was thinking of the basics of it, what I wanted was the most ruthless pirate see the red sails on the horizon and turn around to try to flee. And so we just try to do it that way. But yes, plausibility, trying to keep it real as you can in a fantasy.
Yeah. That's interesting. I always find it interesting when people are able, whether it's the world or like I have characters. I create a whole new world for two of my character from our D&D campaign and my buddies, and they were two like roguish characters, two different backgrounds. And I started thinking, I was like, well, why are they together, right? Like, and I just kept going, and then I put them in a whole new world. Still put them in kind of like a similar grim, dark campaign setting like we were playing in, but then added a bunch of really, yeah, like my friend was like, this sounds nothing like our game. I was like, that's fine because it's cooler. No offense to our DM at the time, but I did find it hard to, really change certain things about it. Because I was like, I thought I knew, everything about it because they were our characters and stuff. So I give credit for anybody that has taken any sort of that experience and then has written about it and kind of tweaked it because it's difficult.
When I role play, I've invariably taken a thief or a ranger type character. Not really much of a fighter. I have done it, but I've tried them all I suppose, to some regard. But I always seem to go back to a thief, across multi-class thief, fighter, ranger. Very rarely magic, but yeah, it's just there's so much magic you can choose to do that I'd rather just sneak around and hide in shadows.
That was my favorite thing to do in like Oblivion and Skyrim, is like to make like the like roguish. I forget what type of ranger that was in fourth edition for D&D. But yeah, it was like the scout, I think is what it was. Yeah, it was just like it was just so much more fun. Like just to do it that way.
There's another one's called a Horizon Walker.
Thank you. I don't know why I was blanking on that. Thank you. That one's really fun to play. I like that one a lot. Yeah, that's like me. I'm Ranger or Paladin every time. My friend always makes fun of me. So it's the two I like. So love me some Aragorn. Yeah. Now, in terms of our next question, so what are the Outer Reaches about, and how did you come to be co-authors with Peter Alden?
So when I was a wannabe writer, I had gone to a small writers' convention in Melbourne, where I was living, and I think I'd left the Navy by that stage, but or at least I'd left the full-time Navy. And like any wannabe, whatever, writer or actor, you hang around other writers and actors, hoping that something might rub onto you, you know.
Vis-a-vis.
So we met in having a cup of coffee, actually, and we just got to talking, and because he was a fellow, well, he'd actually published a couple of books by that stage, and so, you know, I likened to him straight away, and but I was there. I encountered a lady named Devon Madsen, who was at the time an independent, and then she'd had about 4 or 5 books out, and then Del Rey picked her up.
Yeah.
Which I think is unusual for an independent to have a publishing company take your previous work and take it upon themselves, which I thought was really good. Tracy Joyce was another lady that I encountered that she's got a few books out, and then I started doing more conventions, and these are obviously mostly Australian authors, but there's Russell Kirkpatrick, Kat Sparks, I think. Yeah, well, now my memory's failing me, but so I met Pete there, and because we both lived in Melbourne, and we sort of had similar ideas, or at least writing ideas, so we just kept in contact. And then flash forward a few years, I loved Firefly, and he did too, of course, but he was a big Star Wars lover, which is good because I didn't mind it. Anyway, so I wanted to branch out into something new, and I suppose it was because I wanted to reminisce of Firefly. So I had a Maverick crew thrown together for various reasons, and I asked him. I reached out and said, "Have you ever thought of doing a science fiction, as in co-authoring?" Because he'd had a couple of books in the sci-fi genre at that time, and he had a idea of a futuristic Roman Empire, and so we came together and we mulled around a few ideas, and the Outer Reaches came into fruition. So, but I think he'd written co-authored a book before, but it was first time for me. But our two parties were chalk and cheese. So he was an Imperial Force, mine with Maverick crew. Normally, if they encountered each other under normal circumstances, they would shoot each other. And they started to do a little bit of that, but then they realized they had a common goal, and that neither one could do it by themselves. So they joined forces and overcame the goal, and the survivors split up. So we didn't actually, our two parties didn't encounter each other till around about chapter 13. My crew were doing stuff, so we swapped chapters. So my crew would do stuff, his crew would do stuff, and obviously you could read as a reader, you could see that we were getting closer to each other without each party knowing about it. And then we met, and we, like I said, we didn't shoot each other completely, and we realized that we had a common goal. And we were picked up by a small press publisher at the time, and they said, "This is great. We want, 1 book is good, 3 books are better, a series is better." And we explained that because of the differences of opinion of the two groups, that we split up at the end of book 1. And they said, "Fine, we don't care. We'll have 3 books." So his group went off to do a completely different scenario. So they're not books 1, 2, and 3. It's book 1 and 2 sequels. And my group will go off and do something completely different in another part of the galaxy. Basically the same timeline, but just in different sections. So that was, we call it, when we're talking, we call it TOR, the Outer Reaches. And So book one is Iconic, which is basically named after the massive ship that we come across. And then he goes off. He's in the second sequel, shall we say, is Questa, which is a Roman judge, jury, and executioner type character. And my group go off in a book called Far Horizons, and a bit like Star Trek-ish. It's the same universe, but they don't interact with each other after that.
It's really interesting.
That's how I got to together with Pete, and we're obviously quite good. I'm in France now, and he's still stuck in Australia, poor guy. But yeah.
That's awesome. Well, that's super cool. I think that I just always think like stories like that, how, people co-author or how they do it, or, how the story came about. I don't know. I always think that's really cool. And it's interesting to see how different people do the press thing too.
I should add that there were sections where he wrote most of it, but some of my crew, some of my crew split up with some of his crew, and so what we would do is obviously we would read each other's chapters and just maybe change a bit of wording, or my character wouldn't have said that or wouldn't have reacted that way. Yeah. And so that was really the only co-authoring talk we really had about the book, whether or not his characters would say this or how they would react under these circumstances. Him being military and my group being non-military upbringing. I mean, we had an engineer, we had a computer software hacker dude. The main character, Alexis, she was a botanist by trade.
That's cool.
And I use a lot of subliminal training methods. So they're in when she was in spoiler alert. It's not really a spoiler. You'll learn fairly quickly. She was in basically in stasis for a long time, and for various reasons that are explained in the story, she was thrown in her partner's stasis pod because hers, as a botanist, was further away from the command center. And so being in his pod for 30 odd years, she had this subliminal training of being an executive officer. And of course that imposed over her training as a botanist, which is sort of why she has lots of headaches and why she doesn't really trust herself a lot of times making decisions. But then the voice in the back of her head, which is the executive officer training, comes to the fore and sorts things out. But she's a conflicted woman because she's got her botany training in one as a scientist, and then obviously as a military officer telling her to do something completely different. And my favorite character out of all of them is I can't even think of her name now. Sabria. I loved a video game called Unreal Tournament, or computer game. Yeah. Unreal Tournament. So I sort of pinched that idea a little bit, and so Sabria is an escaped warrior from Surreal Tournament, which was similar sort of thing on the fringes, where the barbaric, brutal type fights were big revenue raisers. And so she was, think of World Championship Wrestling, and so she was a very, very famous and warrior. And again, she was left the gaming scenario and was on the run. And so she takes up a lot of she does a lot of the fighting in the background and trying to teach them how to defend themselves, and then rolling her eyes and have to do it again.
Been there for a long time. I totally get that. Oh man, Unreal Tournament. I miss Unreal Tournament. What a great game. Great series of games, really. That sounds really awesome. Now, I know we're running down on time, but before I ask you the last question, I definitely just want to talk about the misadventures of Biff and Tiff. Do you mind just telling us? I know it's your children's fancy. You mind just telling us a little bit about that? Because it sounds really interesting.
As I said, this was one of the ideas that came to my head during COVID, walking around town, and I suppose I just needed the break from the death
I
rate, of
get
course,
that.
jet. But it was just about two mischievous fairies. Fairies weren't born with wings. Um, we don't know that, of course. We're just stupid humans, and only good fairies get wings, and then they can do magic. So, of course, these two fairies, Biff and Tiff. Tiff's the she's older by a few minutes, as in twins, but she's saying that we need to atone for any misdeeds we did or didn't do, and looking at sternly at Biff. And basically, they go off on little adventures to try and find out about this missing place called Gnomehenge and why magic is disappearing in the land. And they hope that during those adventures, they will atone for any misdeeds, and then graduate, get their wings, and they can start doing magic.
Oh, that's really cool. That's an awesome idea.
And
Well,
they
now
can
our audience can go.
and
Yeah.
leprechaun stuff,
Yeah, that's cool. I always like to point that out because we don't do too much children stuff on here, but I do have some authors who, like you said, right, need a break, and I don't know, I feel like you guys always have really good ideas. So it's nice to always like my son loves fantasy and sci-fi because I have books that he's younger that are reading, right, and then as he's getting older, it's like, oh, this is like more natural, and I don't know, I think those things are super creative. So I think that's really neat. It's always cool to for them too, right, to learn through something besides just regular fiction. Blah.
boring.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I know we're winding out of time here, Andrew, but I want to make sure I leave you some time, to talk about any news, updates, current projects, anything like that you can share with us today before we head out.
Okay. Well, I'm doing a lot of tours now. I'm living in France. I started doing some book conventions in the UK, and MegaCon Live was one of them. Trying to get into MCM Comic Cons. But I recently did a Comic Con in Paris, a Comic Con in Brussels, and a Fantasy Basel in Switzerland. So I'm obviously an international globetrotting author.
Hey.
And to be honest, whilst I have done better in Australia than, say, in Paris, or about the same in some cities in Australia that I did in Paris, bearing in mind that I'm writing in English and I'm in a country where English isn't the most isn't the native tongue, nor is English reading that that widespread. So 20 books in Paris, I suppose, was okay. I did 40 odd books in Brussels, and I did 60 books in Basel. So I'll go back to Brussels and I'll go back to Basel again if they'll have me. And I've got a couple more gigs in the UK later on this year. But otherwise, I put it all down to my wife. She's very supportive. She doesn't read my work except for the children's books, but she's got into the web design, which is alienpress.org. If anyone wants to look at that, she's designed all that. She's updated all the events that I'm doing. Any of my books, there's a section there in the menu for excerpts, so you can read a bit of each of the books to see if you like the style. And the 7 Portals is out in audio. Benjamin Fife was the narrator for that.
Oh,
and
nice.
so you can also listen to some retail samples of each of the books to see if you like his voice, and then you can buy. And because I'm wide, I'm not specific to Amazon anymore. You can literally buy my books anywhere, audio anywhere. But if you buy the ebooks from my website, they're about half price from Amazon, and I still make royalties out of that.
Yeah. Oh,
Thank you, Jeff Bezos, a yacht.
yeah. Well, that's cool. Well, that is awesome. I was jealous of you going to all of those places and selling books. That's all I want to do at this point. especially at this point in the school year. So very, very jealous there. But yeah, I love seeing, your updates and stuff like that. And I like seeing anytime, someone's going to a place and, seeing that they're selling books just makes you feel right. Like, that it means something, right? Especially if you don't have your tangible one ready to go. So I always appreciate those updates. I think they're awesome.
If I may, I just point out where we live in a little town in southern France. Outside our front door, every Tuesday is a market,
Mm,
and we took the plunge today. So I have the normal thing I have for a stall at a book convention is my tablecloth, which has got the big Alien Press logo on it and some big pull-up signs. So our front windows on just to the sides. We live in a corner block, and our front window is just around the corner from the main street. So I put up a big sign. Opened up these big windows. I put down the
that's
tablecloth.
awesome.
Had my books there. Had a little sign saying "Meet the author," all in English. But we have a lot, especially in this weather at the moment. We have a lot of English-speaking
Mm,
travellers, and admittedly, not a lot of them will want to read science fiction and fantasy, but it doesn't cost me anything. I just sit
yeah.
there on the social media whilst I'm drinking coffee, waiting for someone to say, "Hey, let me read your book."
Oh, that's super cool. That's awesome. Well, I hope you become your town's next tourist attraction. That'd be
Hmm.
awesome. So, well, that's super cool. Well, I want to remind everybody, where we can find, all your books and social links. Everything's going to be in the description of this interview, anywhere where you're watching or listening. Um, I had somebody ask me that recently. I was like, yep, just go down below, and then you will find all of Andre's book and social links there. So please make sure you guys are clicking on those. Please make sure you're giving them follows and stuff like that. If you guys could also remember, we're really trying to focus on book reviews. So if you guys could remember, as soon as you read one of Andre's books, give it a review again, wherever it is. That would be amazing. It's the thing that's going to help out all authors and creatives on here, no matter who they are, what company, traditional, indie, or trad, doesn't matter. So if you guys can continue that, it'd be really great. Andre, thank you so much. I'm so glad I could get you on today and chat, and I had a great time and had some good thoughts before my writing session later on this evening. So thank you so much. I will send you up a follow-up email and I'll get everything to you. But other than that, my friend, you just let me know if there's anything else I can do for you in the meantime, okay?
Will do, and much appreciated for reaching out. Thank you.
No problem. I'll see you later, Andre. Have a good one.
Cheers.